Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the exciting Lunch and Learn session today. Our Lunch and Learn speaker today is Leah Pennington. Leah is part of Cox Communication, and she's working in Pathways Effective Coaching. If you're not a Toastmaster and you're attending this webinar, ask us more in the chat or the Q&A. Let's do our housekeeping first. Why are we doing these as webinars? We do these as webinars because we have people from California that just joined. We have people from other districts, and we do not have everyone's media release form. So we cannot show your lovely face. But as Leah's busy presenting, I will monitor the Q&A or the chat. If you put questions in there, we will raise our hand and I will ask Leah your question because they're very important. We want to make sure everyone is heard. Leah became a Toastmaster in December of 2020. She's only been a Toastmaster for 1 year and 6 months. So step up to the challenge, everybody. Look at this girl go. She has competed in a humorous speech contest at the district level. Yay, Leah. And she served as the Vice President of Public Relations for Cox Communication. Sometimes we all have to do things that scare us. Like Leah, she was born and raised in the Philippines. She migrated to the United States in 2014. She speaks 3 languages. How impressive is that? Today, she's going to share her journey with us, as well as the benefits of learning. And hopefully it will inspire us to do the same. Help me welcome to the real lectern, Miss Leah Pennington.
Thank you, Colleen. Buenos dias, bonjour, ohayo gozaimasu, Joan at Shimeyo, Shuba Prabat, Zhao Shanghao, Sabal Alkait, Maayong Buntag, Magandang Umaga. Good morning, everyone. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't speak all of those languages. But wouldn't it be great if we're like an AI, an artificial intelligence that allows us to download data on our brain? And with a snap of a finger, we're able to learn any language we want. Imagine life where you do not forget anything, where you can learn any language, anytime, anywhere, on demand. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Well, enough of my wishful thinking. Now, let's go back on Earth and let's get back to reality. Welcome, everyone, for today's Lunch and Learn. Now, at the end of this session, I would love for you to remember 3 main things. S-O-B. S-O-B. I know what you think of, not the cuss word, not even the son of the boss. S-O-B stands for first S, my struggles learning other languages. Next would be O for how I overcame those struggles. And lastly, B for the benefits of learning other languages. I would love this session to be really a conversation. Now, I believe that no one has the monopoly of knowledge. And I believe that every one of you who's joining this webinar or even watching it in the future will have something to share and for us to learn from you. So with that, I would love your participation. Like Colleen has mentioned earlier, because it's a webinar, you won't be able to speak out loud as I wanted. However, we have no technology. You can drop in your chat and answer questions. And Colleen is gracious enough to help me out. And also I have my husband here who's helping me out with all the technology that's in the background. Now, first question. Is anyone here who's joining this right now live speak at least 2 languages. Feel free to drop in your answers. And even if you don't speak 2 languages, that's fine. Just tell us that you only speak 1 language. I assume that it would be English, since we're joining the Toastmasters based here in the United States. But feel free to send in your responses. Now, if you speak another language other than English, I would love to know what other language you speak. I want to know the representation of the people that has joined us here. So Colleen, have we had any responses yet as to if there's anyone in the group?
Absolutely. You've got some great responses. I'm surprised a lot of the people speak 2 languages, but one says they speak 1.5 languages. That one has me curious. And when you asked, there's French and Spanish is the 2 responses we have.
Oh, wow. Sounds like the rest of the world are represented in Europe and one in South America. Well, that's amazing. At least now I have kind of an idea of who we are speaking with. And for those people that speak Spanish and French, I would love to hear your stories as well. So now let me bring you back into my world, back to my roots. Now, as Colleen has mentioned earlier, I was born and raised in the Philippines. Now, as a child, I have to learn 3 different languages. First, my native language called Cebuano, which is commonly referred to as Bisaya. Second is our national language, which is formally known as Filipino, but is popularly known as Tagalog. And lastly, we have to learn English in school. So imagine as a child learning these languages at the same time. Insanity, isn't it? But the good thing is that there are ways that we can overcome this. So now let me share you 4 of the reasons why I struggled. Let's start with the first one, which is reason. Now, as a child, learning our national language and English are not a choice for me. I had to learn it because in the Philippines, it's part of our Philippine educational system. So you have to learn it whether you like it or not. Now, have you ever done something in your life where you don't really have a reason as to why you're doing it, but because you were forced to? At least I did. I didn't really have a reason as to why I had to learn those languages. 100%, or maybe 99.9% of the people in my neighborhood speak Bisaya, which is my native tongue. So learning other language is not really a necessity for me. I don't have my why. I don't know if you're like me, but when I was a child, I was very curious. I don't know if you remember asking your parents, "Mom, why is the sky blue?" Or maybe ask, "Mom, why is the orange round?" Those are some few questions that I asked my parents. And also asked us to, "Mom, why do I have to learn these languages in school when I can just speak our native tongue?" And that was one reason why I struggled. I didn't have a reason. I didn't have my why. Next reason as to why I struggled is the environment. In the Philippines, geographically is actually subdivided into 3 main big islands called Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So I grew up as part of Mindanao in a city called Cagayan de Oro. Now, in my neighborhood, most of the people that live there are poor. So we didn't really have a conducive environment for us to learn the language. Now, don't get me wrong. there are some Filipinos that mostly are from rich families that speak the English language in their houses. Unfortunately, not me. So the environment that I was in wasn't really helping me to learn other languages. And next would be my attitude. Yes, you get it right. Attitude. Learning English back when I was a kid was dreadful. I was full of fear. I don't know if maybe in your case, when you were a child, that you were forced by your parents to learn karate classes or maybe learn piano lessons, and you don't really like it because people may judge you. That's what I think. Back in the Philippines, learning the English is kind of like finding your mistakes. Like you're graded by not being able to do it right. So you have to just memorize it. Like read, for example, dog, D-O-G. So I just have to remember D-O-G is dog and C-A-T is cat. So it was always with fear. But on the other end of the spectrum is that I'm also afraid to being ostracized. Okay, so let me explain. As a kid, if someone speaks English, your other classmates would think that you are maarte in our term. Maarte actually means arrogant and show off or conceited. So you are being perceived by the people around you that you think you are above everyone else. And so, as a kid, if you want to have friends, you wouldn't want to speak in English because you can be ostracized. And so those are the two feelings that I have as a child. Fear and fear of being rejected. Fear of being laughed at. And who wants to be laughed at? Especially growing up. Now, and lastly, lack of practice. Now, I honestly didn't have that much practice at all. You know why? Because the only time I get to practice learning English is basically just in school. And that's only 1 hour of a class. And within that 1 hour, all we really did was memorize and read the words. We didn't converse in English. It was just that routine of, you read this word. And you know how sometimes English can be crazy. I don't know if any of you have seen that contest piece I have done for the humorous speech, which talks about the craziness of the English language. How sometimes you learn the word tough, T-O-U-G-H. So you would think as a kid that if you see a word D-O-U-G-H, it's a duff. Right? I wouldn't know that it's not duff, it's dough. So all of those things really have contributed for me struggling in learning the language. Now, for those people who at least speak 2 other languages, what are the struggles that you may have that I may not have mentioned? I know I've mentioned 4 things. I didn't have a reason. The environment was not conducive. I had a bad attitude learning other languages, and I didn't have practice. Colleen, did we have any responses? If they have, they want to share any of their struggles, I'd love to hear your stories.
Not yet, but I know my niece was born deaf, and I struggled learning to tell her she was a pretty flower. I was too old, I thought, to learn something new, and learning to do sign language using your hands I'm really not proficient yet, but that was my struggle. And you do have one response here, learning French. She faced the exact struggles that you did. The same fear. I bet fear is a big thing of a child trying to, you always want your friends to think you fit in.
That's so true. And I love that you mentioned, Colleen, about the sign language, because really language comes in different forms. It's not just the spoken language that we mostly refer to. Now, I've also recently learned about body language. How, sometimes people can say some things and their body language says otherwise. You know who's lying. And also there are tons of other languages that kind of open me up, like love language. Before I got married, I learned about love languages, because that really helps. If you're married, helps to have a tighter bond together, knowing how to express your love, but at the same time, showing your husband how you want love to be expressed, so that, you have a great relationship. But thank you so much for sharing all of this information. Now we're done with.
You have a question here. It was, did you find it that you had a fear when you were speaking to strangers?
Yes. So at least back in my day, in the 1990s, you don't really see a lot of foreigners, at least from where I grew up, because mostly foreigners go to a more safer environment in the Philippines. So usually Mindanao, there's not much tourists. And so if I can remember right, the only term that we normally use is Joe. So we have this preconceived idea that most Americans who visit, at least the white Americans, we call Joe. Hey, Joe, hey, Joe. But other than that, you just stay quiet, because you will be fearful of whether you can understand them. And with that, let's move on to the O, how I overcame those struggles. You know what they say? That facing your struggles is the way to overcome them. And let me share 4 things with how I overcame those struggles. Now, remember how I told you the reason I didn't know why? It actually, when I was in high school, that I finally realized why I want to learn English. Now, let me explain. It may be the most practical reason why, but I wanted to learn English because I want a good job. In my culture, we, as children, want to help our parents. So as a child, that was my goal. I want to have a good job so that I can help my parents. And one of the things that I've learned is that if you are able to speak languages, you can work abroad or even work within the Philippines, but would have a better paying job. I was very practical. I just want a good job. And that's my reason. When I finally have found my purpose and my reason as to why I want to learn the language, I was able to find ways on how I overcame them. And so finding your why as to what you do is really important. Because let's face it, we are going to have struggles along the way. And it's not just on learning language, it's basically learning anything about life. Anything that's worth working for, it's going to take a lot of work. You're going to go through a lot of obstacles and struggles. But once you find your why, you will find a way to go through it. Now, next is the environment. I told you that my environment wasn't really conducive for learning English. Great thing though, is that once you become kind of an adult or maybe a teenager, you can change your environment. What I did was find like-minded people who wants to also learn English and join them. First, I joined the debate club. Now, I'm not really good with debating, but with that group, they are speaking in English during their sessions every week. And that gave me an opportunity to put myself out there and not to be afraid to be judged. Just like how Toastmaster is. What I love about Toastmaster is that you can be yourself and put yourself out there without no worries of being judged or being laughed at. Because guess what? All of us here are a work in progress. If you think that you already are an expert and have reached 100%, that means you're dying. Because I believe in lifelong learning. Regardless of what age, you're gonna learn every time, every day. It feels like every day I learn 10 new things that I haven't learned before, maybe on a personal level or a professional level. Aside from joining the debate club, I have joined school paper group. I'm not much of a good writer, but those are avenues that I can surround myself to learn languages and be able to actually write them. And I see myself learning new things, learning new vocabularies that I haven't learned before. And on top of that, I've also joined drama club. And so as a teenager, I try to find any avenue that I can find to be able to practice actually speaking the language. Not the kind that you memorize and read. It's more of a conversation. Now, the great thing today with the advent of new technologies, there is social media. I mean, who doesn't have social media? Everyone has social media, at least that I know of. And that is a great avenue for us to be able to meet new people all over the world. Not just social media, even Zoom. We may have someone here joining from another country that allows us to interact. So you get to have that environment that allows you to learn the language. And next would be the attitude. And I would say the most important part. Once I found my reason, and once I allowed myself to make mistakes, everything has changed for me. I was no longer afraid of being laughed at because I know I have my purpose. I know I'm going to reap the benefits of learning these languages. And so when that changed, it gave me more confidence to be able to speak the English language. Now, I am nowhere perfect at all. In fact, I am still a work in progress. Just looking at my life from when I migrated in the United States back in 2014, there are some new words that I haven't heard before. And sometimes there are new words that I have already learned, but then have a different context. Just for example, the nuts. I only learned nuts as the peanut that we eat. But then sometime I heard someone saying, she's nuts. But why are you talking? She's not nuts, she's a person. What are you talking about? I just then learned that nuts is actually crazy. And so you see, everywhere, depending on where you're at in the language you're learning, there's no stopping. You're gonna learn new things as we go along, and new things that we may have not heard before. Now, lastly, if I have lack of practice before, how I overcame that was a no-brainer. Lots of practice. Now, in the Philippines, we love karaoke. One of the best ways, and for me, a fun way of learning another language is learning it through their music. That's when I started imitating different singers. So I'm gonna make you guess whose singer am I imitating. So please bear with me, okay? First singer. So if you know the singer, please feel free to respond. Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know if something wasn't right here? Now, those are that's one of the songs that I like to listen to when I was a teenager. Next singer. 'Cause I'm your lady, baby, and you are my man. Sometimes I am frightened, but I'm ready to learn about the power of love. And last singer. I know I don't want to destroy your eardrums, but I'm just gonna make this opportunity to sing because I do love it. Can't you see? I'm at your feet. Whatever. I know I can be crazy sometimes, but those are really fun ways for me to learn other languages. Yes, Colleen.
You have some comments. They're guessing it's Celine Dion, Britney Spears. One says they did not know you could sing so well. That was great. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Shakira?
Yep. 100%. Now, what really helps in learning other languages is music. And if you love music and if you love to sing, feel free to do so. That's actually one of the ways that I have tried to learn how to pronounce and enunciate things. Now, if you are interested in other avenues, feel free to do so. I know one of the other things that I did as well was watching shows. I love to watch Seventh Heaven and Dawson's Creek. I don't know if you've heard of those shows back then, but I love watching those. And if you like acting or being dramatic, you can try to emulate dialogues and be able to learn that way. Now, there are a lot of fun ways to be able to learn other language. So you just have to try it out and see for yourself what works best for you. Now, the good thing though is that these days, there are a lot of different avenues that you can use, like using Babbel, Duolingo. Some people who wants to have kind of a formal training and have an actual native speaker from other countries, you can join in Lingoda. Really, there are a plethora of options that you can do for you to learning the language. Now, I'm gonna ask you the question, what are other things that you have done that I may have not mentioned in order for you to have to overcome those struggles learning other languages? I would love to hear them. So feel free to put in the chat and tell us what are your other ways. Come on, spill the beans and share us your secrets on how you have learned to speak other languages.
One person saying, love Duolingo. TikTok. Somebody loves TikTok. Technology for sure. Here's another one. Listen to the radio stations. You can get them so easily now. Good tip.
Awesome. Really, technology has helped us to have these different avenues be accessible to us to learn. So there is no reason why we don't learn other new language if that's what you decide to do. Now we're done with O. So we're done with the so. Let's move on to the B, which is the most exciting part. The benefits of learning other language. First is the health benefits. Now, this information is not something that I have created. It's something that I have learned online through the internet. Don't you know that if you learn other language, that it helps basically delay the onset of dementia for about 4 to 5 years? Isn't that amazing? Because, I don't want to have that problem. And if you don't want to have that problem sooner than you think, one of the ways that you can do is learning other language. So imagine learning a language is like a workout for your brain instead of your body. Next health benefit is aging. Who wants to age? Not that it can't prevent aging, but it just delays it. Because now, I don't know if you've noticed that people who basically works their brain out would have a tendency of delayed aging. Next would be enhanced memory and multitask. Actually, a recent study published in the Journal of Experimental Child Psychology aimed to find out the effect of learning a foreign language had on child's memory. This study found that bilingual children performed much better than the monolingual children on tasks using their working memory. Now, working memory deals with storage and processing of information over a short period of time. And not just that, it's not just the memory that you are boosting, it's also multitasking. Now, remember how I told you that there was a study of the NIH, it discovered that bilinguals have better working memories? And because of that, they can focus their attention and can disregard distraction. They are able to switch between tasks quickly and easily, just as they're able to switch between languages. And lastly, the benefit of learning another language is cognitive ability. Now, we're gonna have some tests. So please prepare yourself and brace yourself for this test. Now, the goal is for you to say the color of the word, not the word itself or how it is spelled out. You have to just say the color. So for example, this first one, which my husband is going to show, you're going to say white, right? It is color white and it is the word white. Now, in this second slide, you would notice that some people might say yellow. Some people might say brown. And so that's what the cognitive test is. I have another slides here that we're gonna run through together, and I'm just gonna give you guys 3 seconds, just test out for yourself. I know that I cannot hear you because all of you guys are muted. However, try to do a chat and see if you were able to do it correctly and actually read the color based on the color of the word, not the word itself. So let's go with the next slide. What's that word? How about that word? The fourth one. The next one. The second from the last and the last word. Tell me how you did. I know maybe for some, it was so easy for you. You were able to figure it out right away, but some may not. One of the benefits of you learning another language is being able to actually read the color of the word, not the word itself, because you're able to switch to different information. Just like sometimes in my brain, when someone tries to speak to me in English, I have to translate certain words, like how do I translate this to my native language and how do I translate my native language back to English? Now, the next benefit, aside from health, is O for opportunities. Now, let me tell you, I was in university when I was a junior in my university that I have lost my scholarship. And so I was struggling because losing this scholarship, meaning that my parents wouldn't be able to afford me to go to university. And what afforded me to be able to have a job is my advantage of speaking the language. When I was in junior, I actually became what we call as a call center officer back then. I was one of those people that calling different businesses in America and different households, asking them to do a survey. And with that, it allowed me to have the financial means to support my school. So really, having another language gives you an opportunity for finances. I mean, we are in a globalized world right now, which means that if you are here in the US, you are able to work in other countries like Europe, China, in the Philippines, maybe if you like. And so learning other language can open doors of opportunities for you. And it also opened doors of opportunity for me as well, finally, when I graduated. So back then, I used to work for Accenture, which basically is a business process outsourcing company who deals with different clients from the US, from the UK, from Australia. And that's when I learned that English words can mean different things to other countries. And that was an eye-opener for me because, sometimes you use words that are English, but they don't mean the same thing in other countries. Like, for example, CR is what we call a bathroom in the Philippines. CR, which means comfort room, because that's where you find comfort. But when you go to the UK, they don't use bathroom. Most of them just use toilet if you just refer to a place where you need to, do your nature thing. And it's really fascinating for me. Not only did it give me financial security, it also helped me advance my career. In the Philippines, I was actually a professional educator. When I tried to do my master's in chemistry education, unfortunately, I cannot afford to do that with me being an educator. So I had to find other means. And that's when I worked for Accenture. And sadly, not sadly, but sad for me as a teacher, but you working for a BPO company that is multinational allowed you to have a salary that would be 2 or 3 times your salary as an educator. And not only that, because of my proficiency in the English language, I was able to go through different departments and talk to different people around the world and advanced my career. And who would have thought that I'll be migrating to America? Aside from the opportunities for career and finances, the best part for me is actually finding love. I don't know if you have heard my story. I actually met my husband online. And so you may have heard, or you may have seen a show called 9 Today Fiancé. Yes, we are those people. But it's not as dramatic as you might see on those shows. So I actually met my husband online, and then him and his dad went to the Philippines, and after a year or so brought me back to America. And that's why I'm here. Imagine if you have a husband that speaks in English and I wouldn't understand a thing of what he's saying. That would have been impossible for me to do that. Imagine a life where you're a couple and you don't understand each other. Now, don't get me wrong. I still have my struggles, okay? There are still some language barriers and sometimes other people can't understand what I'm saying. The good thing is I have my husband to explain to them. Now, aside from opportunities, is perspective. When you learn another language, you open doors of different cultures, different traditions, what you may be used to. Let me say, for example, in the Philippines, we only have one pronoun for he and she. The word is called siya. And so every time I share stories to my husband, I keep interchanging he and she, and sometimes that can get confusing, especially in today's world where using pronouns is important. I am guilty of that. And not that I make excuses, but I find it hard to kind of switch because in my culture, we only used one. And so that has opened other people's perspective as well that, it's not that I'm being disrespectful. It's just that she grew up to a culture where it's not needed. And me learning another language has opened my eyes to so many things. Now, essentially, learning another culture makes you think of your own culture as well and your own language. I don't know, to some of you, like for example, in Spanish, like construction of words are a bit different. When you say she is beautiful in some other language, when it's translated, it actually meant beautiful is she. It's different. And what's fascinating for me is that when I came to Arizona, there are actually a lot of Spanish words that are the same with my national language, which is Tagalog. Let's say trabajo. Trabajo is work. And that's the same word that we use in the Philippines, which actually makes sense because Philippines was under this, the Spanish for over 333 years. So that kind of paints you a picture of the influences of the different countries that have come through the Philippines. And because of that, you will have more empathy. When you learn another language, you would be able to have a better understanding and be more empathetic to other people. Because imagine if as an American, you only speak English, going to another country that you know nothing about. It basically strips yourself out of everything that you know. So what do? Is basically ask help for the people around you. And that allows your insight to become wider and better. Now, to those people who have other languages to speak, what are the benefits for you that you may have experienced yourself that I may have not mentioned? I would love to hear your stories and your answers as well. I'm sure there's probably tens of thousands of benefits that I have not discussed here. I would love to know yours as well. Colleen, do we have any responses?
We'll give them just a minute to type. I did want to, there we go. Loved being able to read books in the original language. Oh, that's very good. Interesting.
Yep, that's amazing because you can. It's weird because reading is different than just watching it on TV. It just gives you, it allows you to imagine more of what it looks like and put yourself in that story. And also one other thing too is that recently I have been fascinated with Korean dramas. I don't know if you watch Netflix, but I love watching those shows with the subtitles because that will give you a glimpse of the different words that they use for certain things, which is amazing. Now, I want to ask, what kind of language are you interested in learning? And feel free to reply that on the chat as well. Now, really, language is a tool to facilitate communication. And communication is an essential part of really all of our relationships, may it be personal, may it be professional. And so in order for you to better communicate to other people, learn other language, because that allows you to also better understand your own language and how you communicate to others. Now, I understand that learning can be a real struggle, I should say, but it's definitely worth your while.
You have some comments, and let's start with the first one because I really like this one. Being able to plan a party for my parents in front of them without them knowing a thing. That's good. And one said Spanish and Swedish is the language they would like to learn. One put German, another Spanish. Ooh, maybe learn Russian and Hebrew.
Wow.
And someone else said they would like to learn Spanish, but they took 5 years and they still cannot speak it fluently.
Now, and I love that you've mentioned different things from all over the place, from Hebrew to Spanish. Like for me, living in Arizona, I would love to learn Spanish because then you'll know you can go to a taqueria and order anything you want, and you will have a conversation, have different stories that you can share. And what's fascinating to me, like I mentioned earlier, that there are similarities with words that really kind of blown my mind, because it's like finding kind of a piece of my home, the Philippines, here in the United States as well. And I would encourage you all, if you haven't really thought about learning another language, think about it. It doesn't have to be the spoken language. It can be those other forms, like Colleen mentioned, sign language, body language, love language, whatever it may be. The important thing is that we're able to learn new things. And guess what? When we're learning a new thing every day, we're only growing. Thank you so much for joining this session. I don't know if there are any questions that have left unanswered, but we are done.
All right, Leah, someone said they needed an accountability partner, and you're getting a lot of this. Was great talks. I have to agree. You inspired one person here that wants to return to learning more languages. And your color chart of words, I didn't get a chance to tell you, that was a huge success. These people are quick. They were picking up on the color, not the word itself. And I know we all wish to thank Leah for preparing and providing this. This was a thought-provoking session, sharing aspects of and helping us learn to face our fears, giving us tips like acting and singing, using technology. Wow. I mean, you gave me thoughts of things I never thought about and introduced a whole new perspective on the ideas of languages. Everyone, please check out that YouTube video presentation and share it. This will be posted later, and I put this in the chat. I don't know about you, but I could listen to Leah for hours. She's turning us into global citizens, don't you think? Leah, that is awesome. Thank you so much for today. And that's somebody else said too, I could listen to you all day. And here, good to your husband to be there on your tech side support. That's
yes, he's I'm so blessed to really have him, and that's why you want to learn another language. You might meet someone on a different side of the world, but yeah, he has done all the technology that I have, so I don't even have to worry about it. So he's awesome. Round of applause.
Wonderful. And anybody wants to check her out later, she will also be on Cox Communicators. Maybe she'll put the link in the chat for all of us to join, or send me the link and I'll send it to all our participants today because I've got them captured on my list. So thank you. Any other comments? Let me look real quick. Great talk, and thank you, Leah. You did a marvelous job. Thanks for doing this. Have a wonderful day, everyone. This concludes our session for the day.
Thank you so much. Baboosh! Like a